Hey, you, and welcome back to I'll Have What She's Having, the essential podcast for all things sexual healing, sexual freedom, and living a freaking turned on life. I mean, who doesn't want to wake up in the morning and go, fuck yes, this is my life. I feel so alive, and today is going to be amazing. So that's what we do here. And then we do the practical work of removing what's in our way. So today we're talking about communication. I know it's not everyone's favorite topic, I know, but it is so essential and honestly so sexy when you get it right because you can go from confusion to connection so fast. You can bypass all the sticky stuff and you can get to those moments of insane pleasure faster. And that's really what communication, good communication, is all about. It's being able to cut through the noise, cut through the BS, and get to the juicy stuff so much faster, so much more reliably without triggering anybody in a way that doesn't feel, safe. Because, like we know, being in a relationship isn't about not being triggered by someone. It's feeling safe being triggered by that person and then being able to work through it. So, we're not going to avoid conflict. We're not going to sugarcoat stuff today. We're going to go right into it. Today, we're going to talk about some phrases that you can cut and paste into your bedroom talk to make life easier, less triggered, and get more of what you want. Talk about the when, the where, and how to talk specifically as applied to the bedroom. And it works everywhere. But let's talk about it in the bedroom context because I know that's a place where a lot of people are a little bit stumped. And I've also been in those situations where I'll say something and somebody won't respond in a bedroom context. They won't know how to respond to, what do you want? And so let's talk about it. But first, we have a few quick announcements. First, if you're listening to this just after the episode came out and you're in Vancouver, you're in luck. We are hosting an in-person yoni steaming event on Saturday, November 8th at 1 p.m. Hosted in a private space, this is an ancient practice that is so good for you. It's been used for centuries by women around the world to support menstrual health, postpartum recovery, fertility, and emotional healing. It's a gentle, herbal steam bath for your yoni, deeply soothing, grounding, and surprisingly emotional in a wonderful way. And it's not just about the steam. We're gathering in community, listening to our bodies, and remembering that our feminine cycles are sacred. You'll be guided through gentle somatic practices to connect with your pussy's wisdom. And we're going to go through some journal prompts to drop deeper into our bodies and some connection exercises to share and be witnessed. All before we settle into that warm, yummy yoni steam. All pussy owners are welcome, and spots are limited to 8, so please email me at connect@krishall.ca to claim your spot. And secondly, for those wanting to dive even deeper into reclaiming their sexuality, for women who feel like it's a little dead down there, for those who just want to feel sexy, alive, and like their highest, most empowered self, this is for you. I'm offering you a free 1-hour call with me to talk about becoming your most wild, worthy, and orgasmic self. Signing up for this call is claiming responsibility for your life and your ability to direct it, to be a conscious creator of your own reality, to claim pleasure as your birthright and your power, that you are not along for the ride. You have some serious main character energy, so let's grab that and go. Discovering what you want is so much harder than figuring out how to get it. So once you know the what, the rest starts falling into place. So schedule this free call with me and get clear on what you want for your sex life and your relationship today. Link is in the show notes. I will see you soon. And so now, on to this incredible podcast episode. What if pleasure was the key to unlocking everything you've ever wanted? Welcome to I'll Have What She's Having, the podcast where your pleasure is your power and you're allowed to want it all. I'm your host, Kris Hall, a sexual empowerment coach, and I'm here to help you unleash your inner fire. Every other week, you'll get expert advice, practical tools, and juicy inspiration to help you feel more confident, turned on, and fully in your power. Because you deserve the kind of love life that makes people say, I'll have what she's having. So, relationships are proven to be the number one indicator of a long and healthy life. And the quality of our relationships is so much more essential than the number of relationships. So we really need to be investing heavily into people that we love and not trying to spread ourselves really thin. And communicating is such an essential part of that, right? Like we have developed this entire system in our lives where we have to communicate. Like what are we without our tongues and our words? Like everything would fall apart. So communicating in the bedroom, super, super essential and really not talked about enough. Like, what do you say? Like, the amount of people who I talk to who are like, yeah, I don't actually know how to say this or when to say this or what to say, or like, let's avoid these conflicts. Let's nip them in the bud before they happen. And so we're going to go over first some of the principles of nonviolent communication, which is going to be a simple review. And if you haven't heard of this work before, it's this really beautiful body of work by Marshall Rosenberg and a few other co-authors where they have developed a framework for talking in a way that is very healing and really focuses on observations, feelings, meeting your fundamental needs, and also dealing with requests. And so it's really just a framework and a different mindset shift to help you really approach conversations in a different way. And so once we go over that basic theory, we're going to go into some like bedroom talk, the essential ingredients of it. So the timing, the topic, and the safety would be the 3 key points to keep in mind for bedroom talk. And then we're going to go into like speaking versus listening and like some different key phrases that you can use, right? Like the problem with nonviolent communication is that it's very vague and that it actually does take a lot of practice to like use it in everyday life. But these phrases are ones that really, really help to cut through any triggers and just immediately set you up to be in connection instead of in disconnection. And then I'll give you a couple of my bonus techniques for getting really quick clarity on what it is that you want to talk about and getting clarity on what's important and like really again just moving through conflicts and things just so much faster. So let's get into nonviolent communication and do a little overview. So NVC, nonviolent communication, is the main theory is that this belief that all human actions are motivated by needs that people are seeking to be met. And so NVC encourages people to express their needs without judgment, criticism, or blame, which creates a deeper understanding and connection with others. And so the 4 main components, like I mentioned. The first one is observations. So distinguishing concrete observations from evaluations and judgments. So I like to say curiosity versus judgment and choosing curiosity over judgment. But it's also a way of, again, speaking with the I, right? Never saying you made me feel this, but I am feeling this, because nobody can discount your feelings. And if they are discounting your feelings, that's a whole other red flag. So you want to state things from your objective truth, right? Like, where are you sitting from? How do you feel? What have you noticed? And so instead of saying something like, you're not listening to me when I'm speaking, right? That's attributing what the other person is feeling and how they're acting. And instead you say something like, when I was trying to talk to you earlier, I noticed you were on your phone, right? That's removing any of the blame kind of language and switching it over to, I was trying to do this earlier and I noticed that this behavior was happening, right? There's no blame, there's no evaluations, there's no judgments. The second piece of NVC is feelings. So recognizing and expressing emotions or sensations without attributing cause or blame. Again, there's that cause and blame that we're really trying to avoid. So we take responsibility for our feelings. And so we really have to evaluate, like, okay, so the other person's words and actions are actually a stimulus that's it's not a cause of the feelings, it's a stimulus. The cause of your feelings is inside of you, inside your past experiences, your prejudices, the way that you're wired. And so how we choose to respond to these stimuli and our needs and expectations is what causes us to feel things. So here's an example. So you receive a negative message from someone else. Maybe they say, you're so selfish. You have 4 basic options to react. The first is you can take it personally. You can say like, I really am selfish. Oh shit, you're right. And be a little bit self-deprecating. You can fight back. You can say, I'm not selfish. You're selfish. Um, those are not really considered on the realm of nonviolent communication. And then the next two are really good options. So the first is considering your own feelings and needs. And so you could say something like, when I hear you say that I'm selfish, I feel hurt because I need some recognition of all the effort I make in considering your desires. And then you could also, consider the other person's feelings and say, are you feeling hurt because you need me to pay more attention to what you want? Both of these last two are really good examples of nonviolent communication, right? The difference between, just that immediate reaction versus taking a calm moment to think about it and think, okay, what are they trying to say? Or what am I feeling? And how can I express that so that we can, again, move into connection? So those are the first two elements of nonviolent communication. We've got observations and feelings. And again, this is just an overview of some basic concepts that, when framed in this way, it can really help address some of these communication roadblocks. I don't expect you to remember this, but just keep it in your mind, and then I'll give you some good phrases that you can I would really suggest you writing down the phrases so that you can use them and get familiar with using those phrases. That really just cuts through all the heavy work at the beginning and gets you used to using language that feels less triggering. So the next is fundamental needs. So understanding that underlying needs drive behaviors and actions, right? This is a huge concept of nonviolent communication, is making requests. Actually, request is the fourth concept, but really just trying to see someone in an open-hearted view and looking inside yourself and expressing your needs. So practicing figuring out, okay, what do I actually need? I don't need you to text me back right away. I need to know that you love me. I need to know that there is connection here, right? So taking one step further, it's not the action, it's what you are making from the action. It's what you're feeling from the action. And so, yeah, really thinking about what is it that I need and how is that need not getting met and how can I get that need met? And so requests, direct asks are one of my favorite things ever to try to formulate everything into, right? So direct asks, so freaking key. And we'll get into more of these later because I have some actionable advice on how to specifically say, this is what I need, this is how I'm feeling, and cut through all the emotional, hey, help me process my emotions, and instead go straight into, this is what I'm feeling, this is what I need. So this is some of the basic theory, like I said, and it kind of may help stir the pot a bit. It might be a good reminder for some of you. It may be something new for you. And again, if you wanted to go look up some of this work and this framework, it's Nonviolent Communication by Marshall Rosenberg. It's really hard to shift all your responses and your actions and your thoughts into this thinking right away. It takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of practice. You can even go to weekend-long workshops. We've talked about it before on the pod. There is a great episode with a nonviolent communication specialist who goes into communication examples, and he does a lot of workshops in person to help people with this because it can literally save a marriage to start communicating in this way. Okay. So now we get into the bedroom talk. We get into, okay, what are some of my top tips for just, again, thinking about how do I talk in the bedroom? Where can I shift this thinking? So the three main points here is 1, timing, 2, topic, and 3, safety. So timing. What do you talk about beforehand? What do you talk about after? And what do you talk about in the moment? Beforehand, examples like, how do you like to be touched? You can show them, you can use techniques. And do you want it fast, slow, hard, soft, right? What do you want to receive? What do you want to give? What do you want to experience? And then we have safety and STI checks. And are you menstruating? And do you have bruises or scars to avoid or sensitive spots? And then we also have intention. What is your intention for this chat? And I know I talk a lot about that, about let's make a clear intention of what we're going to do in this sexual session together. But these are all such key things. What do you talk about after? Do you feel complete in your pleasure? Did you orgasm? How was that for you? Is there anything else we can do for your pleasure? There is no telling how many times I wish that my sexual partner had stopped afterwards and checked in with one of these things. You know, like especially people who ejaculate. Have you asked the other person whether or not they actually orgasmed or whether or not they feel complete? Because sometimes we're going to address this in a episode really soon, the orgasm gap of feeling like, hey, can you ask me? Can you check in? Can you not just assume that because I made a lot of noise that I orgasmed? Like, I would really love to be seen in that way. Yeah. That's a whole thing. So what to communicate in the moment, right? Immediate desires, sexy little whispers, switching from one person's giving to another person's giving, asking what do you desire like right now, which is often a really hard thing to think about in the moment. So let's talk about topics. Okay, so with topics, I feel like there's two different sides of the coin. You're talking about desires and you're talking about conflicts for the majority of things. So you're communicating what is it that I want to happen, and then you also need to learn how to communicate, oh shit, something I didn't want to happen happened, or this emotion that was difficult for me to work with came up. So the most important skill in the bedroom is asking for what you want and learning how to communicate that. So there's the what, the how, and the where. I can break it down for your desires. So the what. If you don't know what you want, give it some thought. This is something to direct some thoughts to before you get into the situation when you're asked. Journal about it. Read some sexy fiction novels. Look at some fun pictures. Or like maybe this is a place to use porn to your advantage to say, okay, let's take out that experience and say like this is something that I would like, while not getting too disillusioned by the fact that so much of the porn industry is not depicting real life sex. And so keeping a little list of the things maybe. Like I love writing these things down and being like, oh, I thought of this thing once and it turned me on. Let's get into that. So keeping a little list of the things that turn you on. Meditate and visualize the sex that you might want to experience. Think about it often and early so that when the situation arises, it's not an unknown. So I've been thinking about this lately, And you can go through that little mental list, or you can even pick up your phone and look at like, what did I write down? What did I see the other day that just turned me on? Or I just had this thought, I had this little visualization, this little fantasy, and I just want to try a little piece of that or have a shared fantasy together. So that's the what. What about the how? How do you want to receive it? Do you want it with ease? Do you want it roughly? Do you want it softly? Do you want it slow? Do you want it fast? Do you want it after being teased for a really long time? What do you want to be called today? What names do you want to be called? Right? Like there's a how that's really, really important. And then there's a where. Where do you want to be touched? There's so many more places than just genitals and boobs. And it's so important to think about. Where are you ticklish? Where is there some sensitivities and things you like to play with? So all good stuff to think about. What do you want? And ask for it. Think about it ahead of time and then feel comfortable. Practice feeling more and more comfortable asking for it. It is so much easier to ask for it at the beginning than in the middle. So definitely recommend doing it at the beginning. And the next one is conflict. So we'll get into these topics in a second, but I just want to also discuss safety. So there's many different dimensions to safety, and it is the most important thing, especially with pussy owners and women, to have a good positive sexual experience is to feel safe. So the first one is the sensational. Do you feel safe? If not, what I would suggest is practice touching into that feeling of safety. Safety is a feeling. So, taking a moment to notice what safety feels like. You can get into a meditative state, close your eyes, sit comfortably, breathe in and out a couple times, and then just think about safety. What makes you feel safe? Where is a place that you felt safe? Bring that to mind and notice what sensations are coming up in your body while you are thinking of the concept of safety. And, sometimes it's like your grandmother's house or something. And while that might not feel like the sexiest place, you can then take that feeling, that sensation, because maybe the visualization of grandma's house is also coupled with this warm feeling in your heart. And so connect to that warm feeling in your heart, and then that's the feeling you want to bring up and call to memory as much as possible before sex or during sex if you're ever feeling unsafe. You know what your body needs in order to bring up that feeling of safety. So that's number one, the feeling of safety. Number two is emotional safety, which really comes down to being able to know that you can say things, being able to know that you are going to be respected and seen and heard, and that you can say things and they're going to be responded to. The next one's physical. So knowing you can stop at any time, whether the other person knows where you're sensitive, where your boundaries are, that sense of, okay, I am perfectly physically safe. And the last one is sexual health. So knowing where the risks are of any potential sexual health challenges, and having a good dialogue around that as well. If sex feels painful, disconnected, or has a serious lack of orgasms and pleasure, it's time to pause. This isn't just about sex, it's about aliveness. Because when your body stops feeling safe to feel, you lose more than orgasms. You lose joy, turn on, creativity, and that sense of sparkly aliveness, that thing that gets you up out of bed in the morning, that makes you excited for the day. But that can change starting now. That's why I created a totally free 15-minute pleasure breathwork called the Pleasure Portal. It's a guided, gentle, body-based experience to reconnect you to your turn-on and begin the process of rewiring your nervous system for pleasure. Forget forcing yourself to feel sexy or trying to fix your libido. This isn't a checklist or a how-to. It's about dropping into your body and letting it speak to you. This is about remembering that you were made to feel deeply, wildly, and sensually alive. This isn't a cute sex tip. It's just 15 minutes. You'll feel turned on in a whole new way, I promise you. Your body, emotions, and sensations will wake up. Whew, it is just a stunning piece of magic. It's 15 minutes and it might just change everything. So head on over to krishall.ca/thepleasureportal and download it for free. Okay, so let's get into the conflict. Let's get into the conflict part. So this is part 3 of this episode where we talk about specific sentences, specific statement types, specific wording that you can use in situations to be able to move through tougher situations, tougher conversations, especially around sex. So we're trying to express our needs without accusing the other person of anything or assuming we know what they're feeling. Nobody ever likes hearing, "You made me feel awful," or "You made me feel unsexy." The solution is to speak about your experience as much as you can. So come back to, how did I feel? Not what is the situation, not what am I assuming the other person is feeling or doing or accusing them of doing anything. What are you feeling? So, number 1 phrase, the story I'm telling myself is. This takes all absolutes out, right? You never want to use never or always. Of course, I just did. Because they don't really give good results. You want to take the ownership of the truth out, right? Like, the story I'm telling myself is that when you don't text me back within a few hours, you don't care about me, right? Instead of saying, "I don't feel like you care about me." Actually, I used feel there, which is a better way of saying it than you don't care about me, right? You state the situation that you're experiencing and what it makes you feel. It takes full responsibility for what you're about to say. You're admitting that it might not be logical, but it's based on your experiences, past prejudices, opinions, thoughts, feelings, and nobody should fault you for that. And if they do, that's kind of a red flag. Okay, so some other examples. The story I'm telling myself is that when you don't ask me about how sex was for me afterwards, that you don't care about my pleasure. The story I'm telling myself is that when you don't tell me I look pretty before we go out, that you're not attracted to me anymore. The story I'm telling myself is that when I don't orgasm during sex, that we're drifting further and further apart. The story I'm telling myself is that when you can't get hard, that you don't think I'm sexy. And that last one is really hard to say. Really, really hard to say. But that's, again, the story you're telling yourself is such a powerful way of having a less chance of triggering the other person. Just moving through it with a lot of compassion for the other person's experience. And those last ones are definitely things that I would share afterwards. That wouldn't be a during. That would be a, okay, we're done. Let's debrief. Debriefs after sex are actually very important. You can also share stuff that went well, right? You can be like, ooh, I loved when you did that. Or like, this is so beautiful for me. Okay. The second one, again, and this is in the category of speaking, right? So you're telling somebody something, is I statements. So slightly different from the exact phrase of the story I'm telling myself is I statements are less formal, less rigid. So remember to, like, if you're saying you, just reformat the sentence to I. Just think I, right? What is my point of view? So instead of you never take me on dates anymore, try I feel like it's been a long time since we've spent good quality time alone. Would you be open to booking a date for us this Friday? Instead of you make me feel so angry when you don't ask me how my day was, try instead I feel angry when you don't ask me how my day was. Ask for what you need, express your feelings, but make sure you're speaking from your own experience. I feel, I need. I feel is always the best way in, because then the other person has a chance to show you compassion and to respond in a very open-minded way. The next is direct asks. So this is number 3 on communicating, on speaking, right? So direct asks, we mentioned before, stating your own feelings and needs. What are you asking for? And maybe why. You can add in a why, but you don't have to. It can be so much easier to go away with a feeling, think about, okay, what is it that I experienced? What is it that I need to experience instead? And ask for what you need. So simple, but also really hard to do, right? Like I myself have emotional outbursts sometimes where I just can't control the fact that like all these emotions are flowing through me. So instead of, I feel like we never talk anymore, you can try, I feel disconnected from you. Would you be open to going on a coffee date tomorrow? Right? It's an I feel and then asking for something that's going to provide the solution. Not just saying, I feel like we never talk anymore. That's not going to gain what you need. Or even like, I feel like we never have sex anymore. I know that that's an I feel statement, but it's not really going to make anybody feel good, right? That's probably going to make the other person respond in a very inflammatory way instead of really grounding down and saying, I feel like we never have sex anymore. Would you be open to going slow with me, to setting up some time where we create this space, we create a container, and just see what arises in our pleasure? Another example is saying, oh, I feel so bloated and ugly right now. How is somebody supposed to respond to that? Like, yes, you're kind of digging for compliments, right? And you don't want to put that emotional work on somebody else. You don't want to say, hey, you're the one who has to respond to this in a good way, and like seeing if they're going to do it. Instead, try something like, hey, I'm feeling really insecure about myself right now. Are you open to telling me 3 things you love about my body? Right? Ask for what you need. Don't put that emotional work on somebody else. Don't say you have to do this, right? Like, hey, I'm feeling a little bit sad that I haven't orgasmed in a long time. Would you be open to spending a little bit longer next time we have oral sex? Because I would really love to get a chance to just sink in. And it makes me feel really vulnerable to try to ask for that in the moment, but I really want to know that you care about my pleasure, right? Something like that. It's so much more soothing and relaxing to hear, and it's so much easier to respond to. All right, so category number 2, which is listening. So the trick to listening is to mirror. Mirror, mirror, and mirror some more. And then you can summarize and you can empathize and you can offer validation for what it is that they said. And a lot of this is coming from a framework called the Imago framework. So IMAGO, Imago listening and Imago dialogue, which was coined by Harville Hendrix and his wife in a book called Getting the Love You Want. And they have a lot of different information on this framework. Really, really beautiful. We're going to do a whole episode on just examples and walking through the Imago dialogue. But for now, we're going to use the theories behind it instead of the framework itself. So what I just heard you say is, this is the number one thing for listening. Just like the number one thing for telling somebody something is the story I'm telling myself is, the number one suggested phrase that I would use when you're listening to somebody else and really trying to understand and be in loving communication, loving connection with them is, what I just heard you say is. And on the flip side, if somebody isn't really listening to you in the way that you want them to, what did you just hear me say? Using these exact phrases when you're mirroring is so powerful because, once again, you're not claiming that your truth is absolute. You're offering what you understood of what just happened. You repeat back what you heard. You summarize it. And oh my God, the amount of times that these two things are not the same. Like, you said something and you're like, I'm so clear on what I just said. I know exactly what I just said. And like, yes, I'm right. And then the person looks at you and says, so what I just heard you say is, and they repeat back something so like it's coming from their trauma, or it's coming from like not necessarily listening to you. And it's like, whoa, dude, like that is not what I said. So powerful. What I just heard you say is that you are feeling like you would like more attention on your pleasure during our sexual experience. Okay, great. Did I get that right? Is there anything more? And giving them a chance to correct you, giving them a chance to offer more, that's a summarize. You're mirroring. Like, just repeat back whatever they said, but in a shorter way, in the way that you understand it, with the words, what I just heard you say is, and your life will forever be changed. I promise. It just cuts through all that potential conflict. You're checking in, right? You're checking in that you're on the same page. It's, even with the same values, even with lots of love in between two people, it's so possible to have that misinterpretation, right? And if you think that the other person is reacting from a place where they're not really, they're not actually responding to what you just said, it's, wait, what did you just hear me say? And then they repeat it back, and all of a sudden, oh, that's not what I said. Can I clarify? Can I clarify what I meant? Yeah. And I mean, I feel it's really important to say this, that like the number one cure for miscommunication is often space, right? Taking space and saying, okay, we can't work with this right now in our current states. We feel a little bit triggered. So let's take and agree upon a time. Maybe it's 15 minutes, maybe it's an hour, maybe it's a full day. And just say, okay, we can't talk about this right now, but let's take a break and then come back to it. Okay. And number 5. Well, okay, I don't know about numbers at this point, but I'll review them all at the end. There's lots of these. The last one is curiosity versus judgment on the listening category. So we have the mirroring and we have the technique of what I just heard you say is, and then now we have the curiosity versus the judgment. And I would suggest using the phrase, I'm curious why, and then filling in the blanks, right? If you ever catch yourself saying things like, I don't like that, or I think you're wrong, or I have a different idea, or just kind of barging in right away with an opinion instead of taking a second to think, okay, what did they just share? Do I agree? Oh, I don't agree. Okay, well, I would love to know why they think this way. And again, using that curiosity, because even though you think it's not a judgment, so many of us have been trained to speak in ways that really sound like a judgment, even though it's not a judgment. So removing judgment as much as we can from our communication and adding in curiosity. And the best way to really think it through as curiosity is to add in the word curiosity or curious, right? I'm curious why you said that. I'm curious why you have that opinion. I'm curious why you think that you orgasm more than I do, or you orgasm less than I do. I'm curious why you couldn't really stay hard today. That's a really hard one. I'm curious why you are experiencing less connection right now. I'm curious why you said that to me. Can you explain more? Right? That curiosity goes a really long way. It's opening up to, okay, let's see where this goes instead of, I know exactly where this goes and I need to judge it right now. So, oh, such beautiful techniques. I hope that these are really, really powerful for you and offer you a new perspective and offer you some like juicy little insights into where you can make your communication even better and remove some of those conflicts and maybe give you insight into where you've experienced conflict in the past. And so finally, I'd like to offer a couple bonuses here. So one is my 1 to 10 rule. Such a great tool. I use it with my partner all the time. It's so wonderful. So it's basically a way of getting clear because clarity is also essential, right? If you're trying to decide what to do, like let's keep it into that bedroom example where, okay, you share, I've been feeling a little bit neglected in my pleasure lately. I've been feeling like I haven't experienced that many orgasms lately. Would you be able to give me a 20-minute oral sex session and be uninterrupted and just let me sink into this? And the other person's like, oh, I've been feeling the same. Like, this is conflicting needs. How important is this to you on a scale of 1 to 10? And the other person goes, oh, it's a 7. And it's the initial reaction of like, how important is this to you? I mean, you can use any scale you want, but I like 1 to 10. It offers nuance without being like 1 to 100 or something. And you just say what's on your mind, and you have to trust that the other person is going to say exactly what they're feeling, exactly the number. And then once they give you that number, you go, okay, great. You share yours, and whichever one wins gets to go, right? Because it's like you both can understand, okay, this is like 10 out of 10 important for my partner. That's where we need to go versus like this is 7 out of 10 important. And even though that's really important, it's not as important. So we can either go there after or negotiate when to talk about that. And speaking about negotiations, something else that is just so important, because you know what? There's 3 different, I talked about the different times to talk about stuff, but the timing also has a 4th option, right? There's before sex, there's after sex, there's during sex, and there's also way the fuck away from sex. Like just so far down the line or on a day where you're not having sex or connecting intimately, preferably in person, but just having those tough conversations further away from the bedroom so that it's not in a triggered state. It's in a more calm, I thought about this. I have something to share with you. I really need to talk about this topic. So getting consent to have a conversation. And I know that this, like some people might be rolling their eyes and thinking like, wow, we've gone so far with consent. Like, do we really need to get consent for talking about something? And you know what? It's really nice because you don't want somebody to like, imagine you're at the grocery store and all of a sudden somebody's like, the sex last night was really bad, and you're like, oh God, okay, I can't talk about this right now. I know it's like a strange example, but like, I don't know, what if when you're on the phone with your mom and your partner comes in and just goes, I have to have this conversation with you right now. And it's like, okay, but can we do this another time? And so the idea is get consent. I have a tough topic to discuss. It's about sex. Are you available for a conversation in 15 minutes? And the other person says, sure, how long do you think it's going to take? Well, it's probably going to take about half an hour. Okay, sure. Let me get some tea, go to the bathroom, and we can sit down and we can talk about this. Or, no, actually, I don't really have time for that today or the emotional capacity. Can we talk about it tomorrow? I have a gap between my meetings at 1:00. You can negotiate. And yes, that is something I have done before in my relationships that I've gone, okay, no. And like, it's always a negotiation. It's never a, no, I don't want to talk about that because that to me, violates the agreement of being like, okay, we're in partnership, we're in this relationship, we are going to talk about everything. So yeah, it's not a no, we're never going to talk about that. It's a okay, where can I make time in my schedule as soon as possible because this is really important to you. But that doesn't make it so that I don't have time to think about it, or like, you can get the one sentence, or you can just not just be like, hey, I don't want to know, but like, let's move towards this. So yeah, yeah, that getting consent for a conversation, so essential. So those are my essential communication tips, my essential communication hacks that I have used so often that are so important. I'll put some of those links in the show notes to Mago Dialogue, to Nonviolent Communication, where some of these key concepts have come from. But let's first go over a quick review of what we did. So first we have the concepts of nonviolent communication, which are really distinguishing between observations and judgments, really focusing on recognizing your feelings and sensations without attributing any blame or cause, getting your fundamental needs met, and making requests for those needs, right? That's the basic theory. Next, we have bedroom talk. Think about the timing. What do you talk about beforehand? What do you talk about afterwards? What do you talk about during? And what do you talk about way later or in a separate day or container? Then there's the topics of sexual conversations, desires and conflicts. Where is something a little bit sticky and where is something you want to bring in more of? When you're talking about desires, the what, the how, the where. What do you want? How do you want it? And where do you want it? Some simple ways to think about it. Think about it early and often and figure out what you want before you get into that situation. And then we have safety. Think about safety from a sensational place, an emotional place, a physical place, and a sexual health place. And then we have those beautiful, beautiful phrases. So number 1, we have the story I'm telling myself is. Number 2, we have I statements. Number 3, we have direct asks. Number 4, we have what I just heard you say is, the mirroring technique. And then number 5, we have curiosity versus judgment. So I'm curious why. And then we have our 2 bonus techniques to get clarity. Number 1 is the 1 to 10 rule. How important is this to you on a scale of 1 to 10? And number 2 is getting consent before having a tough conversation. So I hope you got some amazing insight from this episode. I hope you're feeling super empowered to have those tough conversations. And if you ever need any assistance having those tough conversations, feel free to send me an email. Let me know what you thought of this episode. Let me know if any of these really sparked an aha moment for you. I would love to hear about that. Email me at connect@krishall.ca to chat more. And share this episode with a friend that you think really needs to hear this. Maybe even share it with your partner. That would be fun, right? Wouldn't it be fun to say, hey, do you have 15 minutes to talk about this episode that I shared with you? I would really love to talk about implementing some of these techniques into our relationship. Whew, it gives me chills to think about you guys doing amazing conversations with amazing wording and language that makes everybody feel more connected and safe in their relationships, and making those relationships so strong, making those relationships literal works of art, because that is what I believe in. Anything you work hard at can be art. Let's make some freaking art out there, people. Fuck yes. Let's make our lives literal pieces of art. I love you so much. Thank you for listening. Until next time, go out there and make life so spicy.
Thanks for tuning in to I'll Have What She's Having. If you love this episode, do not keep it to yourself. Share it with a friend, leave a review, or shout it from the rooftops, preferably mid-orgasm. If you want to go deeper, join me at krishall.ca for group programs, private coaching, and more pleasure-packed resources. And remember, your pleasure is your power. So go out there and flirt with life itself.